Hi everyone. As you can probably tell by my voice, I'm not Darren or Emil. My name's Bethany Gill and I'm an interaction designer here at Gravity Sketch. I've been here at Gravity Sketch for just over a month, and while I've been here, I've been working closely with an amazing team on our recently released iPad app. I'll be focusing a lot of my time on user feedback in future, so please shoot me any feedback you have so that we can make this app the best it can be for you. We wanted to go live today to show you around the app as well as answer any questions you might have along the way, so without further ado, let's dive in. So when you open Gravity Sketch, this is what it looks like. You'll be prompted to log in first into Landing Pad. You can skip this if you want, but we recommend adding your Landing Pad to this app. Once you've logged in, you can actually see that you can go to Landing Pad here or log out, because I'm currently logged in. The main difference with Landing Pad is that you get access to loads more features if you've got a Landing Pad account attached to this app. It lets you store all your designs on the cloud, and you've got access to like a range more features too. So if you're not logged in, this view will be slightly different. My files will be limited because we can't store everything on your device. We can only store a certain amount on your device. And you'll also see some gallery sketches at the bottom instead of having these tabs. If I click into gallery, you can see a few designs here. Some of these are from external people who helped with our beta testing, and some of them are from designers within Gravity Sketch. So you can see my ones here, Bethany's Oculus Quest 2, that's something I designed for this app. You can see Goshen, who's my team member. She works as an interaction designer too. She has some of her designs in here as well. And then Leon and David were some really amazing beta users which really helped us with this app, making it the best that it can be. If you click into any of these, it'll actually save a copy to your My Files, so you can edit it without ever changing the original, so that you can get inspiration, learn a little bit more about how you can use Gravity Sketch and all the different tools and features that we offer. This information tab as well has get involved areas here, your social media links, and a link for feedback or bug reports, so you can access everything that we have on offer. And it gives you a little bit of information on the left about our app, why we made it, and what our goal is. You've also got the My Files section, which I mentioned earlier. This will hold all your landing pad files, so if you're familiar with this, we're also a VR app. Anything that you created in VR will show here, and you're able to open VR sketches and vice versa. So in VR, you're able to open your iPad sketches. You're also able to have anything that you've got from Landing Pad also in this view as well. So as you can see, I've created a few sketches. If we just jump right into one, you can see that you can orbit a sketch by using your fingers. You can pan and zoom using 2 fingers as well. You can also rotate and orbit with 1 finger. So you can open any of your sketches within this sort of view. If we start a new sketch, you can just click this plus button at the start, and it opens like this. So this is the default view. We have 2 different camera modes, and you can access those camera modes using this button in the top. And there's a slightly different way of thinking for each mode. So if I start with the default mode, you can see this grey rectangle that's showing on the screen. This grey rectangle is your draw plane. So basically anything that you draw will appear along this draw plane. So if I then rotate, you can see where it intersects, where that highlight is, and then I can draw another line, and it's always on that grey rectangle. In this view, your draw plane will always be fixed to whatever you're looking at. So if I orbit to anything, so if I orbit to this view, you can see that grey rectangle never moves from the view that I'm looking at. If you go into this other view, this other camera mode, you can see this grey rectangle is actually fixed. So no matter where I orbit to, it doesn't move with what I'm looking at. The way to actually change your draw plane in this is by using this little toggle on the side. So here you can actually change the draw plane angle and then draw along that draw plane. That's the main difference between the 2 camera views. So it's all super easy to navigate and use, and it completely depends on what your preference is depending on what camera mode you choose. Personally, I prefer this camera mode because it reminds me a little bit of that CAD software that I grew up with. I studied product design, so I used CAD a lot every day. And so this is the camera mode I prefer. Someone who uses more 2D design software might prefer this one just because it's more like drawing on paper, because you don't have any of those axes and floor. If I go back to this mode and draw a line on that draw plane, you can also see, and then maybe I'll draw a line this side too so that it creates a 3D object. You can also change where your draw plane is in depth. So you can move this axis using the slider on the side, and it actually moves the plane back and forth within your design, so you can make it three-dimensional. So say I've just made that squiggle in the middle, I want to move that draw plane back so that I can make another line further back. So that's why the slider is here on the side. If I go back to this view, I'll also go through settings as well. I think before we get straight into designing something with sketching, I think it's really useful to know all the settings first so that you can set your preferences, understand what sort of environment you want to be designing in, and then you can get designing without having to worry as you go along. So I'll also show the settings panel, which is in this top corner here. If you use this drop down, you've got preferences and gestures. So your colour selection is either a circle or a square. At the moment I've got square. You can look at your colour selector in this top corner. At the moment I've got square, but you can easily change that to circle by looking here. You've also got environment. So the environment is only applicable in this camera mode. If you're using the other camera mode where it's fixed to what you're looking at, you won't see these two options. But in this option you can get your axes up, and you can get a floor up as well. So if I just change the angle of my drawing, you can see that floor is appearing now. You can also have different navigation aids. So at the moment I've got this cube in the bottom right. If I click and hold, I can actually move that around the screen. And as you can probably tell as I was sketching, doing those little squiggly lines, if you click on a face, it snaps to that face. You can also use the navigation cube like this, so you just move around and then you can snap. And you can also use these arrows to move in increments. If I turn that navigation cube off and select this one on, when I hold this circle button in the bottom left, you can see this actually appears. In the other camera mode, if I hold this circle button, it'll snap to that viewpoint as well when I use these buttons. So if I hold that, and it'll move to those views. If I turn all of them off, so I don't have any navigation cues now, and hold this, you can actually use hotspots located around the sides of the image to also snap. Or you can just use your finger to orbit, depending on what your preference is. As well as navigation aids, I'm just going to turn that nav cube back on because that was my preference. You can also change your input smoothing, so this is how smooth you want your line to be. So if I go into input 0, you can see as I draw circles, very, very close circles, that it follows my pencil pretty accurately. If I go to the opposite side, which is input smoothing 3, you can see as I'm doing circles, it's not actually creating circles until I go a little bit bigger, and that's because the smoothing has been put up. So really similar to some of the other applications where it just wants to smooth out your curve, so when you do draw a curve, it's very fluid. You've also got plane shadows, which you can toggle on and off, which is more applicable for when you've got more drawings and more surfaces and stuff. It just creates a shadow on the plane that you're drawing on. So I'll turn that off for now. Gestures, so if I just set that to square. Gestures, you've got pen mode, which is what I'm currently in, so that's when you can draw with your pen and orbit using your finger. If you don't have a pen, that's okay. We recommend using a pen just because the experience is better, but you can also use, sorry, just go into the other camera mode. You can also use your finger to do finger painting instead. So say I didn't have this Apple Pencil, I can put that to the side. You can actually draw using your finger. And then navigation cube to navigate around your sketch. The vertical rotation lock is very similar to our VR app. You'll actually probably notice if you're used to using our VR app that there are quite a lot of similar features that we've included because we wanted to have that likeness to the VR app. So vertical rotation basically means when it's locked that you can't orbit and rotate all your images and stuff. You keep to that vertical axes. Your cursors is what I'm keeping on at the moment. That's basically this purple dot that goes as I use my pen or my finger. You've got left hand and right hand layout depending on if you're left-handed or right-handed. So I'm right-handed, so I'll keep that on. And then you've got a few different thresholds that allow you to kind of customize your preferences a little bit better. So now that we've gone through the basics of how to actually use the app, I'm going to jump into a half-sketched app, or half-sketched drawing, sorry. And this is so that we can actually get sketching. I can show you some of the tools as we go along, and it's only half finished because I didn't want to take up too much of your time. So as you can see, this will be a mouse when we finish drawing it today. I'll start by using a different tool. So at the moment I'm in Ink Tool. That basically means if I go onto that draw plane and set it, as I increase pressure on my pencil it'll get thicker, and as I decrease pressure on my pencil it'll get thinner. So it's really good for doing quite quick sketches. There's the stroke tool, which means that no matter how much pressure that you put on the pencil it'll always be the same thickness. You've got your ribbon tool, which again you might notice some of these from VR, which is basically like a flat and thick sort of brush stroke. You can see there it's thin and then it's thick in this view. And then you've got two volume tools and a revolve tool. So planar volume allows you to cross over, and then when you edit it, and I'll show you more about editing in a minute, you can pull all of this out to extrude it. And you've got your normal volume tool here as well, which doesn't allow you to cross over on your shape. So if I try and cross over, it'll just make this sort of shape instead. And when you edit this one, it's slightly different. You can't extrude it, you can just pull it out like that instead. And then finally that revolve tool. So you've got your axes here, and you can just make a revolved shape. So right now I'm going to go into stroke mode. I think I prefer going into stroke mode just because rather than doing like a really quick sketch, right now I want to have a more defined shape, so that's why I've chosen that. There's also this low poly option as well, which basically means as you make a curve you can see that it goes a little bit more jagged, so that has those straight lines and those very pointed edges. But for now I'm just going to keep it off of low poly mode. You can also change your brushstroke slide by choosing the option here. I'm going to keep it to that at the moment because I think it's quite a small object. I don't really need any more than that. Just going to select this stroke. There we go. So the other thing that I wanted to show you is being able to manipulate and edit strokes. So for that I'm first going to create a stroke on this axis, on this draw plane, sorry. So I'm just going to set that draw plane by using this toggle. I'm going to go into this view, and then I'm going to slide this plane back and forth. So I actually probably want it just in the center for now. I want to create like a center here, a line through there, and then I'm just going to go ahead and sketch. So that's around the type of shape that I wanted. But you can see this doesn't quite reach the edge on here. You can see that maybe I want a little bit more curved up here, and to actually be able to do that I click this button in the top left. You can also actually access it by using one finger to double tap. I'm then going to select the stroke and then click this control points button down at the bottom. And then you can see all these yellow dots appear. These are basically the points that you can click and grab to manipulate the stroke that you've created. You can also plus and minus strokes. So if I want less strokes, I can use the minus button. If I want more strokes, I can just add more points in using that plus. For now, I'm just going to keep it really simple with a very small amount of points. So I'm actually going to take it down to about that many. This button here at the bottom too, you can see it's currently selected. This is in purple. I'm just going to take that off for now by clicking it. And it basically means that if I've got it on and I change views, I can move this out. But if I've got this switched on, I can't actually move that out. It gets stuck to the draw plane, so you can't move this. Now if I peek around the corner, I can actually see that I want it a little bit further down than that. If I use the navigation cube like I just did, it's going to stick to wherever I've actually orbited. If I go off of the navigation cube, as long as it doesn't pass 15 degrees, the threshold that I set, you can see it snaps back. And that's really good for like if you've got a complex drawing and you just want to check that you've grabbed the right control point, or in my case I want to see if I've actually gone far enough, which is down to here I want to go. I can just use that really handy feature. So I can see that I haven't. I'm just going to extend it a little bit further and then use it again. And I can see now that I think that's pretty much where I'd like it to be. So I'm going to go out of edit mode now. And so far it's looking pretty good. I just want to add another 2 onto the edges to give that sort of more of a curved shape and to give more dimension as well. Move it forward and back. Another really useful way is if you don't want to like orbit the entire way, and I'll quickly show you in the other camera mode too. If you don't want to orbit all the way to the side to see where you've set your plane, just delete that rogue stroke. You can also use the slider and you can see like the grayed out areas that your draw plane is behind, and you can see like this line here, as I pass that draw plane through, it gets darker, and that's another way that you can tell where your draw plane is. In this camera view, there's a really cool feature which lets you orbit it straight away so that you can actually see where it's passing through, and then that's an even quicker way of doing it. You can also see this like glow as well of where your plane is intersecting. So for now I'm just going to stay in this view. I'm just going to go it like this so that I can actually see, because I want to be quite accurate with where I position this, and I want it around there. Now I'm just going to go ahead and sketch, so I can see that there is my greyed out line here. It's not showing great on the camera, but you can see like your naked eye on it, you can see that there's a lighter grey and a darker grey. So I'm actually just going to go from there and then follow that shape around. That's actually pretty good shape. I'm not going to change too much. I might actually just start from this, because this is a sharp edge, I'm actually going to start the curve from here instead. So instead of moving all of these up, I can just go here, select the point that I want to delete, which is this one, and then use the side panel to delete it. Use the trash can icon. I could, alternatively, if I wanted to, I could actually, if I select it again, I could go back and then just select points by using the box select. The box select is a great feature. So if you drag from this side, so from right to left, anything touching the box, so if I do it so the box isn't fully encompassing that top one, anything touching the box will actually be selected, and then if I go from the other view, you have to be fully inside of the box for it to be selected. So if I half go onto this bottom one, for example, you can see it's not selected. Whereas if I go this way and do that, it is selected. That's actually really useful for complicated strokes where you've got quite a lot of things overlapping and you only want to select a certain amount. You can also do that when you're just in normal selection mode you can select certain strokes. So if I want to select all of it, this would have to be inside of the box. If I go this way, I can do anything that touches that box. But going back to this one, I could also select those 2 points and then just move them up. So I'm quite happy with that shape. Just going to check like I did before if the last one, the last one is pretty much directly on where I want it to go as well. Cool. Now something I did want to do is, slightly too far down actually. There we go. That's better. So something else I wanted to do is show you the mirror plane. So I want this side mirrored exactly on the other side, and then I'll break it so that I can edit it slightly. So to do that, I could either have used this mirror plane in the top. So if I select this and then select mirror, you can see this second grey box appears. So anything I draw on this side is repeated on the other side. But if you've done what I've just done, which is not switch it on before I started sketching, there's another simple way to actually get that mirrored. So I select the stroke, and then I select this drop arrow, or the side arrow, and it reveals this hidden side menu. So in this side menu, I'll just talk through quickly all the different parts, and then I can talk through the mirrored section. You've got a stroke here, a stroke graph. This will make it bigger. You can either use this diagonal line and you can go wide and thick, or you can go one side, so in one angle it's thin and the other angle it's thick, or you can do the opposite. In this case I'm just going to go back to what it was, which I think was around 5. Yeah, that looks right. And just select it. You've got these, which are the cross sections, which actually if I just make it bigger again, you can see that there's square, diamond and circle. If you've got one control point which is thicker, say for example you've used this ink tool, so you can see there's thicker sections and thinner sections. You can use this to make it all one thickness. I'll talk about this tool in a second because I'm actually going to use that one. This curves your edges, this adds caps or takes caps away, so if I just zoom in you can see on the edge, oh sorry wrong one, this one, you can see on the edge that a cap is added and then the cap is taken away depending on what I've toggled. You can make something low poly using this, so if you've drawn it already but you want to edit it afterwards, you can just use this toggle. Rather than using it before you actually use your tool by selecting it in that tools panel. You can also create a loop, so this is really handy for circles or squares. So if you're drawing a circle you can just use this loop button to really quickly turn it into a full circle rather than trying to line up those end control points. And in my case, I can now delete that stroke. In my case I actually want to mirror this stroke on the other side. Oops, there we go. So I'm going to go into the side menu and click mirrored. So you can see that it's highlighted in orange. That shows that it's the mirrored object, and this is the original in purple. If I move one, it moves the other, and the same with editing. If I edit one, it'll edit the other. I'm actually, because you can see this side, it cuts in quite a lot, this side it doesn't. And also I'm going to probably just manipulate it slightly to follow this curvature a little bit better so that it curves around like this. So although I wanted a mirror shape because I kind of wanted it very similar to this side, I'm actually going to use this tool which I mentioned earlier, that I'm just going to use that to break the mirror. So now they can move independently. So I've got this mirrored object but it still moves independently. Another version that I could have used is just using the select tool, using this copy button on the right hand panel, and then if I use this square button hold as I do this, you can see that it only moves in horizontal, vertical, and it should be diagonal too. And then I can just line it up to wherever I actually want it. So I probably want it around there. So that's another way that I could use mirroring if I didn't want to be the exact same side. There's a little bit more flexibility in where you move that. So now, as you can see, the side panel here on the corner too, it doesn't quite match up. So I'm just going to go into edit mode. I'm probably actually just going to delete that point entirely and go into the side. Turn on that planarity toggle and just move that down. Just edit the points slightly. I'm going to, oops, this view. I'm just going to use this box select to move all of these points out. The same with if you want to move certain control points, you can click and hold the square button to move it exactly straight if you wanted to do that too. Just move it out to the side. So I'm actually pretty happy with that. I do just want to make this curve in slightly more so that it follows the shape better. So I'm just going to do that like this. I'll just go into this view, and yeah, that still is a nice curve that way too. So I'm pretty happy with that. I think it shows off the sides very well, kind of like the dimensions on that side. I am just going to take a second to double check if there's any comments. So yes, that's a very good point actually. Someone's asked what's the difference between the two modifier keys. That's a very good question. So if I just go into a view and change this, if I click the square button, I can make a straight line. I've also shown you how you can move in a straight line if I use that square button as well. If I use the circle button, it actually lets me move in, let me just go back. It actually lets me move in increments. I think actually I need to select something first. Oh, sorry, yeah. It only works in this mode at the moment. We're hoping to expand it into the other mode too, but we just haven't gotten that work so far. Okay, maybe it's my fingernails getting in the way, but I'll just show you in this view anyway instead. So you should be able to move it in increments like this. And that's basically the main difference between them. The square button is used for more straight lines, moving things in straight lines, drawing things in straight lines, and actually also selecting multiple points too. So if I hold down square, I can select multiple strokes. The circle button is used for more navigation, that's the word I'm thinking of. So again, using those hotspots on the side, moving in increments and stuff like that. So there is a slight difference between the two modifier keys. Someone's asked, is there a feature to add reference images in the app? At the moment there isn't. We're really hoping, this has been something that's been requested a lot, so we're hoping that we're going to include that in a later update. We are planning to do quite a big update. Let me just check if there's any other good questions here. Well, they're all good questions, but anything that I can help answer. Yeah, so someone's asked the lowest version. I can see Joe, who's one of our developers, has already answered that, but for anyone watching, it can run anything on the iPad OS 13 and above. Is this an app from the VR Gravity Sketch? So it's in partner with the VR Gravity Sketch app. You can open something, so you might have missed the beginning, you can open something in iPad that you've created in VR and vice versa. So they are partnered together, it's all under the same umbrella. Is there a way to change the mirror plane? Not at the moment. It is something that we could look into, so if it's something that you would find really useful, then please send us a message with like your use case, and we can kind of collect all that data together. It is something that I'm going to be looking into quite a lot, so it's like getting user feedback and then trying to find ways to improve the app, so please do send that over to us and we can have a closer look into if that would be possible. At the moment, if you do actually create something in a mirrored view, you can always just move that afterwards, which is what we would suggest doing. Cool. So let me carry on. I'll keep looking at the comments as well, so I'll make little pauses so I can make sure that everyone's questions are answered. So I'm actually going to go and create this sort of area where the scroll wheel would be. So I'm going to stay in this camera view so that you get a little bit of an idea of how to use both camera views to draw. So I'm just going to move this into that sort of view. Yeah. Oh, sorry, because I've got that orbit on, orbit threshold, it didn't stay. Another good thing actually to mention, if you do have an orbit threshold on, because you like to do what I do by sneaking a peek around the corner, say I want it here, at the moment it just snaps back. If I tap with one finger, it actually moves. So if I just pop my pencil down for a second, I can show you better. So I just move it to where I want. So I want it there, and then use one finger to tap, and it stays where I've positioned it. So now I'm just gonna go to stroke and just make this sort of curve. And then I'm just going to go ahead and edit it so that it looks a lot smoother. Cool. Bring this one up and bring this one across. So at the moment, let me just go back. At the moment, let me get out of selection mode. If I move that, you can see it's hovering in the middle. That's because I didn't actually change my slider. I can move this now wherever I want by going into selection mode, selecting the stroke, and then just moving it up to wherever I'd like it to be. And then I want it to fit in with this curve. So if I haven't drawn or I haven't moved the plane exactly where I need it to be like I just did, I can just quickly go in and edit it. So I can select these points, move it to there, select these points, move it out. So I want it to follow that curvature a little bit. And just edit it like this instead. So it's really easy to go in and quickly edit your strokes in this tool. As you can see, there's a bit of a dip here because I need more points, so I'm just going to go into this view, click and add pressure. I'll fix this shape afterwards because it's gone a little bit wonky with that extra control point. Then I can just go back into this view, move them up, and the same here. Add 2 more control points there. So there is a little bit of a knack with getting the control points added exactly to the place that you want them to, but it just takes a little bit of practicing to get right. Move this one down. Cool. And you don't have to be as fiddly as I am. I'm just a little bit of a perfectionist when it comes to stuff like this. Cool, so I'm pretty happy with that. I'm just gonna fix the shape a little bit more. Go back into side view, just move these up a little bit better so they line up a little bit more. go back into this view. And just line all these up. I actually want to push this up as well and then move these closer. Cool. I'll just go back in and edit this line to smooth it out a bit more. Cool. So now I'm going to go in and add that scroll wheel section. So this time, rather than just guesstimating, I'm actually going to try and get it as accurate as I can to the right angle. It might actually be easier in that other camera mode if I try and get the right angle here instead. And then I can just go to the side, so I can see I need to go a lot further back. So it's going to probably go there. Then I'm going to go ahead and just check them in stroke, yep. And just make 2 lines like this. Straighten those lines out. Maybe move this down a little bit. And I know I'll probably have to move these lines to fit that curve better, but it should be more accurate to where it is. Or actually, I can show you if I just remove those lines. So the angle is a lot accurate. I did forget to use my slider, so I'm just going to slide that up. So cool. Just going to bring that slider up a tiny bit more. And just draw those lines in again, and then go into edit mode to just neaten everything up a bit. Cool. I'm going to come out of selection mode, and then I've got input smoothing too high to be able to do this properly, so I'm going to go down to 1. And I'm actually going to use that loop tool that I talked about earlier. So you can see that there's a slight gap in here. I'm going to go into selection mode, select it, and then click loop, and it magically links together. So now I don't have to worry about making sure my control points are on top of each other. That is way too many control points for me to look at though, so I'm just going to remove some, and then I can always add them back in. So I like nice curved edges, so I'm just going to add 2 next to each corner, so I can make that corner look nice and curved, and then I tend to add 1 on each straight edge. So an extra 2 here, an extra 2 on this side, and then I can just go in and edit, hoping my hand isn't covering that too much. No, it looks okay. Cool. Now if I want to go in and make, I could actually just delete these ones so that it's straighter to give my life easier. Yeah, so that looks a lot better. I can just go in, select them all like this, or I could just exit this mode and then move it like this. Sometimes I like just staying in this control point mode so I can quickly go in and edit control points as and when I need to. So this will be kind of like, I've got a mouse here actually, I can show you what I mean. This will kind of be like this gap where the scroll wheel fits into. And so I want to go now into the side view. Oops, here we go. And just make sure this all fits into the curve. So this is actually showing a little bit squiggly because I had that planar volume switched on, so that's why it didn't stay on the plane like it might have been better to. Cool, like that. And now I can see, because it, let me just move this one back. Oh, why are you going over there for? Just bring him back in. And then I can go into this view and just make sure. Oh, I know why, because the plane is at this angle. I need to just move it closer to that angle so that it's better there. And that should be better aligned. So that is better aligned, but it's still a tiny bit out. Just going to bring that down a tiny bit. Okay, so that looks better. I'm going to go ahead and what do I want to do? Oh, I can see this line is quite far out, so I'm just going to move that so that it's better in line, and do the same for that top one. Actually, it's sticking out a tiny bit. So yeah, that's a lot better. I'm going to go into this side view, reset my draw plane, and then go ahead and use the slider to make sure it's in line with those sides. I am going to switch the mirror plane on as well so that you can have a look at what that looks like. I'm just going to go ahead and draw a nice curve. Well, that wasn't a nice curve, but I'll make it a nice curve by taking away these control points, maybe adding one more here so that I can make these corners nice and smooth, and this one a little bit more rounded. Oops. Let me just go back on that. Oh yeah, you've got your undo and your redo buttons here on the side, so they light in purple when you're in edit mode, so you can only redo and undo your edits. Or you can also, if I go out of edit mode, you can see they go white, and that's redo and undo on your strokes or moving objects. So I just go back into edit mode. So that's a little bit of a better circle. And then I'm just going to go into this view. Oops, there we go. And box select these points to drag them to. So what I like about the mirror tool as well is if I zoom in a little bit better so the camera can see that, you can see that what you're actually moving to. So if you want it to be really accurate, you can actually drag that to the point that you want it to be. Oops. Select those two, and then just going to move these back down into the right curvature. There we go. So I'm pretty happy with that. I am just going to break it because, sorry, there we go. Because this one is slightly off, and then I can just move it in like that. So that looks good. Just move this back in slightly. That gives a kind of more of an idea. So if I just switch this mirror tool off, that gives a little bit more of an idea that it is a mouse, what type of thing it is. I feel like now I've noticed all these little bits and pieces that I want to change. I'm just going to move this up so that it fits better to that end piece. Okay, I'm better with that. So that's kind of an introduction to all the different tools that we have. Obviously this doesn't go into everything, but once you've finished your design, or actually I'll show you some surfacing quickly. Let me just check for time. Yep, we seem okay on time. So I'm just going to go to the bottom. I'm just going to add a quick surface to the bottom so that you can tell that it's actually flat at the bottom. I know that like on an actual mouse, like I'll bring this one here, you can see that there's lots of dips and curves and stuff, but I'm just going to keep this flat for the sake of time. So I'm just going to go into the ribbon tool. I'm going to select a different colour. My favourite colour is blue, so I'm going to go ahead and select this colour. And then I'm going to, oops, let me reset the plane. Let me just go and make sure that it's at the right place. I can actually just double check that that's perfectly in line. There we go. And I'm going to go ahead and make this brush stroke as big as can be, and then draw down. Now this makes a really fat stroke. Then I can just go in and move these around. And the stroke tool is actually something that I've used really regularly. I'll show you one of the more complex designs that I've actually made with surfacing using the stroke tool, and a few of the other tools as well, like the volume tool. But stroke is what I use most. Just move all of these around like this, and then it will create like a type of surfacing. It just gives like a hint. You could also just bring your, like, create a wireframe, bring that straight into VR, so that you can add sub D and stuff as well. So I'm not going to worry too much about what's going on in the top, because I'm just going to edit that instead. Move that down, move this down. And that's how you can really quickly just go in and create some sort of surfacing if you fancy it. You can use the other tools as well. Volume tool is great for stuff like this. And that gives a kind of hint or a nod that, that there's some sort of surfacing going on. Another good thing, so when you've actually finished your design, so say this is a completely finished sketch, you can go in and name it at the top here if you want to. So I might go in and name it mouse concept, if I can spell, concept. At the moment I'm zoomed into 128%, this shows the scale that I'm at, but you can also scale so that it fits or scale to home. Right now I'm pretty happy with the orientation I've got. If I click this button, it takes me into perspective mode, so it's probably clearer from the side. So from the side you can actually see that it's not matching up like it does if I go into this view, and that's because of the perspective, how it would look in perspective. If I go to this other camera angle, or sorry, this camera mode, just move my camera around. Let me just push this so that it's in front, there we go, and turn on. You actually have this gyro ability here too, so if I unlock gyro, and just reset that plane there, and then if I just move it into the center, if I pick up and hold, you can see it actually looks like it's floating a bit with that draw plane in the background. As I move my iPad, it actually moves the sketch, so that's a really cool feature to have. Really good for presentation mode. You also have, so if I get myself out of gyro, so I'm going to lock gyro, there we go. Go back into this presentation mode where I'm in perspective mode. If I say I've got my draw plane right in the middle of my sketch and I really want to take a screenshot without anything showing, I can turn off everything in my environment. Oops. Just going to quickly plug this in. I can turn off everything in my environment and then just click this button in the top left, and you wait a few seconds and then that closes too. You can still orbit in this mode. This button shows, then you leave it a few seconds and it disappears again. You can also still draw in this mode and your UI appears again once you use your pen on the actual sketch. I think that covers most things actually. If you're ever unsure of what a certain tool does, there's this question mark button in the top. You can actually select any of them. So if you can't remember what the square or circle button does, just click the question mark and select whatever tool that you're struggling with, and that'll help answer that. We are adding more tooltips soon, so if you have any tooltips that aren't working or aren't enabled at the moment, please don't worry, we are going to add more tooltips. They just haven't made it into the live version yet, but they'll be in there soon. The other thing I hadn't shown you yet is layers. So you can add layers. Say this is on a separate layer, this is on layer 2. You can turn off the visibility of layers, and you can change the opacity level too. So if you wanted to do a really quick sketch and then make something a bit more finalized over the top, you could sketch with one layer, turn down the opacity, and then sketch on top of it with something more defined. You can also lock and unlock layers as well. If I swipe, you can, if I turn that view back on, you can also copy it and also delete the layer too. So I'll just delete those two because I don't need that anymore. And we also have tutorial videos too. So if you're struggling with onboarding, you want to do something other than watch these lives or watch the tutorials on YouTube, you can also just scroll through these tutorials. And then if you click it, oops, you can move this around the screen. You can fast forward and rewind. You can see how much time is left in that top corner too, so that they're all very quick videos, just showing you what the tool does. You can also resize and minimize that. So that pretty much covers everything. If you want to force a sync, you can sync that, but if you it does automatically save when you've left the sketch for a few seconds. You can also use that send feedback button if you don't want to use that information tab. Just to give you a quick insight, I will check questions again in a second before I round up, but just to give you a little bit of an insight of what the potential is of this app, I'll show you another thing that I did. So you can see all these in the gallery, which do show exactly what you can do in the app. If you look on our Instagram, you can also see that we're sharing loads of design work from our community, and like, you guys have done some absolutely amazing work, so please go check them out as well. But just something that I've done, which kind of shows what I've been able to do in my spare time. I thought it'd be quite funny to do a VR headset, so just looking for the right one, this one, VR headset final. And all this surfacing was actually done in the app, so I didn't use the VR app at all to do this surfacing. And I think it took me about a day to do the surfacing and maybe a day to do the sketch, but that's because I was doing other stuff at the same time. And most of this is done with the stroke tool, with the so stroke for like these sorts of edges, and then I changed the cross section. The ribbon tool for like the headband pieces and the sides, and the volume tools as well I actually used as well. So I used the volume tools for these goggly bits and the front panel as well. So this front curved area too. Cool. So I'm just going to go ahead and check the questions quickly, see if there's anything else that I've missed. Does the Apple Pencil tap command do anything special? So at the moment it doesn't. We are looking into different ways that we can optimize the pencil, maybe switching between tools or something. We haven't quite looked into it yet, but it is potential to be in that update later on in the app. So if you guys have any ideas of what you want that pencil tap to be, like, send them in to us, because that would be really useful. You can rotate, so someone's asked, sorry, so you can shift the plane backwards and forwards from any view, but no rotation. You can actually do a rotation of the draw plane too, so if I just go back into this squiggly line sketch, you can rotate the plane like to any view. So in this mode, you can move the plane to any angle you want, and then you just click this button to reset. So now if I go, you can see it's at an angle to that drawing. It does the same in this view, so you can angle it at any angle you want, because in this view your draw plane is stuck to the view that you're looking at. So if I want If I want to do like an angle to this line, you can see that there's that angle, but then you can also push it back and forth. So you've got a lot of different options there. Is there any other questions? Can you snap to strokes or points? Not at the moment, but that is another thing that we were really hoping to maybe look into a little bit more. That would be quite interesting. It does snap on a mirror plane, so that would be a good thing to show. So if I have my mirror plane up, you can see my mirror plane is there. If I just make a really thick line, that might be easier, because then you can see exactly what I'm drawing. So these 2 points are actually really far away at the moment, but if I go into edit mode and click control points and select that end point, it'd be better if I zoomed in. You can see when I reach that edge that it snaps together. So we have that snapping at the moment, which kind of helps complete a mirrored drawing, but at the moment we don't have any snaps to strokes or points, but it's something we could look into. That's a very good point. No pun intended. Just double checking if there's any other questions. Cool, I think that covers everything. If I have actually missed any questions, please send them through. There's lots of different ways in this information tab on how to do that. Or you can, leave a comment in here and I'm sure we can go through it properly afterwards. Or yeah, reach out to us on any of the socials if I have missed any of questions, but I think I've covered most of them. So yeah, that's how you create in 3D using Gravity Sketch. I did just want to take a quick second to thank everyone for the enthusiasm as well, and the support that you've given us on our new app. And we wanted you to know that we really do appreciate your feedback, so please keep sending it in. It's making the app as good as it can be. And we weren't sure how people were going to use this app at the moment, so the more feedback we have, the better. We will be supporting the community with more training content too. And that'll be coming out as the days go on, so that'll be more content like this hopefully, more tips and tricks, so keep your eyes peeled for that. We welcome any ideas you have along the way too, so if you're actually struggling with something in the app and you want us to provide content on that, just let us know and then we can include that. Like I mentioned throughout it as well, you can expect another big update later this year for that app. It's going to include a lot more features that have been requested and that we're currently working on too. So, some of the things that I mentioned that was heavily requested is something that will be included in this big feature update. Yeah, so you can download Gravity Sketch right now from the App Store, so please give it a try. Please leave a review in the App Store. Hopefully it'll be a positive one. And yeah, make sure to like and subscribe this video. Hit the bell button to be notified of any future video releases. Follow us on Instagram for more community content, as well as Facebook, TikTok and Twitter. So thanks everyone, and we'll see you next time.